welcome you now to another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast, where we talk about Latino everything. I am your host, Crispin Valentin. Today, we have a very special episode. When we talk about everything we literally do related to Latinos. We got a very, very special episode of hip-hop history, and we got a very special guest with me to be able to share. Tiffany Folklore is going to be with me, Claudia Tiffany Folklore, to tell the story about hip-hop and how Latinos been embedded in the DNA of hip-hop since the beginning of time. And now, to the episode. Tiffany, hola.
Hola, hola.
Welcome back. For people that don't know you, missed the first episode about you. Again, I know who you are. I know what you do. But you recently graduated from TCU?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so tell me about graduating in general and tell me about your degree, folklorico degree.
Yeah, of course. So within my undergrad, if y'all don't know me, my name is Claudia Tiffany Rodriguez. Born and raised in Fort Worth and just graduated from TCU. Mm-hmm. So go Frogs.
Congrats.
And my degree, I created my own degree. My degree was interdisciplinary inquiry with the emphasis of ballet folklorico with the minor of arts leadership and entrepreneurship. I'm a ballet folklorico dancer. And now I'm pursuing my master's at the University of the Rio Grande Valley.
Okay. And then the degree itself for master's, what is it going to be covering under?
In Mexican-American Studies with an emphasis of ballet folklorico.
Okay. Mexican-American Studies with the emphasis of ballet folklorico, mouthful. But also congratulations because you did start a company during this time of you were doing that. So yes. I don't know if you're still pursuing that or it will be in pause until you complete your master's.
So it's a bit postponed, kind of, sort of. So my company is the Heart of Fort Worth Ballet Folklorico or Corazón de Fort Worth. And I teach little ones from ages, well, it's all ages, but mainly I'm focused right now with kids from like ages 5 to 8. And currently, because I'm over in McAllen, you could say I'm showing over Zoom. So it's kind of like in and out in a way. Yeah, but like over the summer, I'll be in town. So that's when I'll do more of the in person.
Yeah, and we happened to be whenever you did the whole ceremony for the initiation of the.
That's right.
So it was pretty neat. Oh, we've been there, girl. We've been there.
I mean, time flies, and obviously super happy because I had my shirt too, and I was like, I love the merch.
And today we're gonna cover something neat. As you heard in the introduction, Latinos in hip hop in general, and Mexican Americans in general also. In hip-hop, because a lot of people might not know who it is. Before we get to that, we're going to do a segment that I like to call Preguntas al Chile. This is a very special edition, very short, but still, of what are we talking about? Hip-hop. So, if you have not subscribed to the channel, now is the time, por favor. You're missing out on these amazing stories and amazing individuals' contribution and history of things that you might not realize that we're so heavily involved from the inception of this thing called hip hop. ¿Estás lista? Are you ready?
Yes, lista.
At the same time, I am going to answer it also myself, just because why not?
Go for it.
Okay, ¿estás lista? Rapping or DJing? Which one do you like better?
DJing.
DJing. I like DJing a lot more these days because I actually do DJing and I've done songs before. So even the rapping part is kind of graffiti or breakdancing. Which one do you like better?
That's so hard. Gosh. I mean, I'm within the dance, so I have to go with breakdancing.
With breakdancing, I was going to say. Kid Frost, Cypress Hill, do you know these two artists?
I've heard. I'm not too familiarized, but I would say Kid Frost.
Kid Frost. This is for La Raza. La Raza or Insane in the Membrane. Those are both Cypress Hill's Insane in the Membrane. La Raza is Kid Frost. So I'm guessing La Raza?
Say La Raza.
Absolutely. So, Bronx party or a backyard carne asada?
I mean, I have to go with like the backyard carne asada. I have to.
Would you like better consider conscious rap or party rap? Which one do you like better? If you like any rapping at all whatsoever.
I would say conscious.
Conscious?
I prefer conscious.
Okay, so if for you doing ballet folklorico, if you was to have the option to dance a ballet folklorico but with a hip hop song, which one would it be? Which one do you think you can make the most spectacle, the best show with a particular song that you might like that is hip hop or rap?
Pending, because I actually don't know. I've never actually thought about it.
Folklorico with a hip hop song?
I mean, I've done like national anthems of like, what's it called? Like the TCU anthem, which doesn't go within Folklorico, but sometimes I've thrown out there, but I have to investigate now. That's super cool.
Well, we might be in the fusing something here.
Easy.
So, if for people that don't know, again, we're going to be talking about hip hop. So, hip hop in general covers 4 elements. So, when we talk about hip hop, everybody most of the time assumes that it's going to be just rapping. So, for you, as far as thinking about hip hop, what was the first thoughts for you? What do you thought it was? Do you thought it was rap? Do you thought there was more to it at all whatsoever?
Well, growing up, I wasn't too familiarized with hip hop. You could say my dad would listen to hip hop, but my just thought of like what hip hop is. I just knew it was like based in New York, based in like breakdancing, and then I would say graffiti, and then as well, I know it ties in a lot of with a tricky subject with gangs, you could say. But now I've kind of have gone more in depth, and it's not just necessary gangs or just partying, There's a lot of history to it. Same thing with folklorico,
Yeah,
but it's just getting your foot in the door.
Yeah, so if somebody that doesn't know what hip hop is, there's 4 elements. Depending on who you're asking, it might be a 5th element. So there's the MCing or the rapping, there's the DJing portion, and there's their graffiti part, and then you have the b-boying or breakdancing. All those are the 4 pillars. And again, depending on who you're asking for, if you're asking the National Zulu Nation, they might incorporate a knowledge or conscious element of it, because it's not just rap. And the general public that you ask, most of the time they really go into just that part itself, which again is understandable, because if you don't look into it, you don't realize. But to your understanding, how much do you know that we were Latinos were part of the initiation of hip hop? Do you know anything about that at all?
Well, going into it, not at all, because even then, like when I would speak with individuals, like, yeah, like hip hop has like a lot of culture, a lot of history. It ties in with like Mexican American like culture,
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, how? Like, I don't understand. Like, that doesn't, like, they don't make the association, especially like coming from my background of ballet folklorico. They're like, that doesn't click, and like I get a lot of questionable like looks, So that's when my radar kind of started like curiosity, So that's where I'm like, I need to get more educated when it comes to like hip hop or like even more cultures, So it's like on top of the iceberg, you could say.
So kind of like ballet folklorico, that you know more a lot than I would. It's very parallel worlds, parallel history, story of them both, because hip hop started one way, folklorico started one way, and now it looks a whole different than when it first started. You know what I mean? And within folklorico, even though there might not be elements, but if you start breaking it down, the apparel, the earrings, the hair,
the costumes,
all
and music,
those things are different. Similarities, kind of, you could say, but they're kind of like structural things for folklorico. Same thing for hip hop. It's the same thing. So the hip hop in general was an African American, Afro Caribbean, and Afro Latino tradition back in 1970 in New York. Mostly Black and Latinos were the ones that were actually, you can say, were the ones that were together and started forming this that is called hip hop now. So the very first thing, the birthday of hip hop technically is back in August 11 in 1973, specifically in a street party, and credited to one particular DJ, which is DJ Kool Herc. DJ Kool Herc, what he did was he was able to take one song that had 2 turntables. He was able to play a song, and then in the break of when the song was about to end, he could loop it around and keep the beat going. So in general, for a DJ, your main goal is to keep an ongoing beat forever, and that's how you keep the element of DJing itself, just an entire endless beat and an endless song, and then of course involving the crowd and get the crowd engaged. So I don't know if you ever noticed going to some dances or anything, the DJ, you can kind of sort of see if the DJ does know what they're talking about, because the song stops and like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, even then sometimes I have performances and I have to speak with like the DJ, like, like, here's my music or etc. And he's like, He's like, give me a minute, because I'm like in my art form, like he's zoned in,
Yeah.
and I have to like respect that, because from like an outside perspective, it's just like, whoa, it's just buttons, or it's just moving the thing, and
Yeah.
it's like, no, there's like a whole science to it.
Yeah. And when you talked about hip hop in general, and like there's not like that is the date of hip hop that is 53 years old now,
Wow.
but going on 53 years, but even before that, there was a lot of Caribbean influences. So we were talking about the Caribbean big speaker individuals. Even Kool Herc's family, himself was Jamaican descent. So all those things were like piling together into creating what he started doing and DJing. And even from that particular party, that's where the actual birth of hip hop, they call it, that is the day that people use in general in terms of anybody that knows about hip hop and into the culture, they know about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you know anything about that at all whatsoever?
Going into it, no.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm getting more educated or more aware of like what hip hop is, it does bring a lot of similarities within folklorico, because even then, when you look into ballet folklorico, you have like a lot of roots from Africa, from the Caribbean, from Cuba. Same thing with hip hop, and it's like, like I wasn't aware they had the similarities.
Yeah, there is one main Latino DJ in the beginning of times that was incorporated, that it is credited to be the number one, very first one ever, sometimes self-proclaimed, but other people do follow suit as far as him being the very first one, which is DJ Disco Wiz. And that also comes from the National Museum of American History, which identifies him as the very first Latino DJ back in 1974.
1974. How many years has that been?
52 years old.
See. Wow.
52. Yes.
Yeah.
So again, I hear those claims of people saying hip hop is a house, and the house of hip hop, everybody else that is after the fact is a guest of hip hop. But I think they limit the concept of hip hop being a cultural thing because it's moved on from worldwide now.
See?
So I'm sorry to say, but it's not, we've been in that culture, like the Latino kids, the Puerto Rican kids, the black kids growing up together in the Bronx, all together were literally the ones that were amongst each other, kind of sort of exploring these things that was going to become something bigger than they were.
Right.
You know what I mean?
A lot of culture as well. And like, again, like similarity with folklorico, it really comes from like the culture, very like roots from like not necessarily, well, within city, but within like la gente, within la raza, you know? It's a lot of root to it.
And that's mostly what it was about in general. I don't think they ever imagined this could be this worldwide phenomenon that reached so many things. And we're going to talk about it as well as the ultimate peak of certain things that reach, from, Grammy nominations to, just in general being on the Olympics, things like that people don't even realize that has happened. But again, it's always like the hip hop term of rap, which is not. We want to clarify this. 4 elements. And depending who you're talking about, there's even a 5th element and even more elements sometimes because of, it is true. It has been changing over time. It has been growing over time. And one of the funny things is that hip hop is 53 years old, going on 53 years old. We have something similar to Latinos Mexicanos, which is corridos. Right. Corridos, some people could say, is very similar to hip hop. Of course, the elements, the instruments of music are different. Sí. But ¿qué hacemos en corridos? What do we do in corridos? We tell stories. We talk about the struggles. We talk about love. Exactly. Sometimes it's political. Sometimes to celebrate a hero, a war hero. So all those things are, and then the pattern of it kind of like in rhythm too, in poetry también. So what's not to say that technically you can say that that's one of the original OG raps.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, like, even then, like, when I was going into it, like, I didn't see necessarily the connection or wasn't very aware. But, like, now when you look into it and seeing, like, there's, like, meaning behind the songs, there's a message behind the song, there's a purpose, it has a lot of representation. And it's like, wow, like you take a lot of things for granted sometimes. And sometimes you don't open your eyes to see what's like outside, like what's more into it.
Yeah. For you, as far as DJing, did you ever, of course, you realized that was it's kind of difficult not pressing buttons all the time. So as far as like the DJing element itself, anything shocked you as far as the things that you've looked into recently?
Well, I would just say the representation because, like, I just had the general, not the general idea, but the general perspective of, like, oh, it's just partying or it's just talking about drugs or stuff like that, you know? It's not necessarily, like, the whole representation of the whole meaning behind it, the whole community to it. Like, there's a lot to it. And especially, like, if you really analyze, like, the songs, there's, like, really, it really talks about, like, the struggle that the community is going to. And, like, even being soft sometimes, too, because even when it comes to, like, rap, a lot of people take it, like, as aggressive and etc. But there's songs that as well, like, represent love or represent, like, the strength of the, like, the community, the family. And it's nice to, like, be more aware, you know? But, like, then again, like, I want to get more educated about it, too.
Absolutely. One of the other DJs that is also notable as far as the Latino and the history of hip-hop is DJ Charlie Chase, Puerto Rican descent también. He was one of the ones that was incorporating salsa, the percussion, and Latin rhythms into the mixing of the whenever you were in a party. So before that time, there was not a lot of DJs that were doing that, but we have such amazing salsa. Specifically during those times in the 70s, it was already all over the place. This DJ just happened to be able to say, oh, we have this amazing drums, we have this amazing we can incorporate it into the beat, and the breaking parts where the b-boys and the b-girls would do their thing, and that's how it all came together. That's another one that actually incorporated some of his upbringing, seeing salsa being played all over the place, and I'm like, okay, we got this thing, hip-hop coming around, this DJing part. Why can't I incorporate this part into it? And all of a sudden now you have another element, another addition to the hip-hop, the DJing part that it wasn't around before.
Yeah.
He was, again, I don't doubt it, there was your opinion or your whatever that was given credit for it, but as far as the books and people that give credit to, he was one of the ones that incorporated Latino sounds into mixing, which is pretty neat. Did you ever consider that in DJing, there was any point in time that maybe some of our sounds like salsa will be incorporated at all whatsoever?
Well, it makes sense now, but like originally, no, not at all.
Another, once again, one of the Disco Wiz, main one, but DJ Charlie Chase, also another very... and these days, today in 2026, when we're talking about DJ, because a lot of the times you'll find the DJs on parks, on parties and house parties and event centers. But these days, you still find all the DJs doing their thing. Sometimes whenever you were protesting, sometimes whenever you have events that are socially related and things like that. So you still find them supporting the things that we do without even realizing that the history goes even deeper.
Yeah, of course. Even when it comes to quinceañeras, done, you know, they're like right there centered.
And that's a lot of work, by the way. I do some DJing and I do MCing. So for me, it was more of the MCing, not the rapping part, but supporting the DJ as the DJ is playing his thing. Because again, if you DJ, you know that it's a lot of concentration and a lot of like getting to go to 1,000 songs to get the songs, get ready for the next one to transition over. And then sometimes it's hard for you to be able to just talk on the mic and be able to do that because you got to stay focused, right? So you have to kind of sort of plan out the things. So that's why a lot of DJs will bring me on to be the MC, master ceremony, so I'll be able to transition, not only make announcements about a quinceañera, a wedding, grand entrances, but I also, as the party's happening, hyping people up, getting them invited to the dance floor, getting them excited, make them shout, make them scream. And I'm one of the top bilingual MCs there is.
Y'all heard it here.
I'm telling you, because it's pretty neat to be able to bounce from both. You can literally speak fluently English, but with the certain things that you say that make people want to do stuff and move. And then you have the Spanish también, because if you don't know how to say the wrong thing or say the right rhythm and get them excited, then they'll be like, okay, what's going on?
And like a lot of people don't it's really like an everyday basis too, because for example, like currently there's Coachella right now, and like there's DJs right there too, you know, and it's a lot to it.
Yeah, it's a lot of words that people don't take for granted. That they feel like it's a lot easy, and sometimes they don't want to pay your price tag, but
See?
they wouldn't do it because it's
Yeah.
not easy to do.
No,
You
and
know?
it's a whole art form, and a lot of people don't understand like what it takes, because like in order to do that you have to learn, and there's a lot of discipline, or even like because I'm not very aware, but I know, like, I imagine those are very expensive, like to just do that.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
So from the DJing, we kind of sort of transitioning over to the we got the light that came on. Right. So we transitioned over to the rapping part. So back in the days, the DJ had an MC and wasn't a rapper yet. He was doing is kind of sort of saying a few things over the beat, like maybe if you're having a great time, let me hear you say yeah, or
Yeah.
kind of sort of making the movement. Maybe here and there he'll bust a little rap that he was improvising. So there was nothing recording at that time. So there was a lot of that. So the DJ and the MC were part and part for the party to be able to make people feel great and incorporate a couple of things here and there. And then, it slowly morphed into being rap.
Right.
So did you ever thought about that kind of sort of is the relationship that it happens? Because a lot of times you see the DJ and you see a guy like, okay, so.
I thought they were connected together, which it is a connection, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily like separate them. I thought they were like best of both worlds, And
Yep.
same thing with folklorico. A lot of people think like within mariachi and the dancing, it's like one, but it's actually like two elements within the whole culture.
It's exactly the same thing for the DJ and the MC relationship. Back in the days, there was that's how it initially started, but they're definitely two individuals. And then eventually the MC and morph into rapping. So the guys were getting really good. I'd be able to, as the break was happening and there was room for them to say something as the next song was coming along, they will bust a couple of things here and there. So it's crazy how people will start realizing like, wait a minute, maybe there's something that we can do there. There could be like an entire song.
Yeah.
And from that thing that happened, from them dudes just freestyling something to all of a sudden now, boom, we have actual songs.
Right.
Yeah. What was your favorite song, very, very first rap song you ever heard for you?
I don't know it by the top of the name of it, you could say, because I'm not really within this, you could say. But I would say an artist that I would really like tie back in would be Eminem. I would really tie it back in because like growing up, like that was kind of like the artist during that time, you could say. But I would say yeah. But I'm not very too familiarized, if I'm gonna be honest.
Okay, so I was born in Mexico. I got here when I was 11, many years ago. And shortly after a few years, I heard Bone Thugs and Harmony, Crossroad. So Bone Thugs and Harmony, Crossroad is a very unique song back in the 90s. I heard the song and English wasn't even my dominant language at that time. I was just beginning to learn the culture and English. So when I heard that song, I'm like, what is that? And then I seen them perform at MTV and they were wearing all white and they were, see you at the crossroads, you'll be. And the way they were spitting so fast and sometimes you couldn't even understand what they were saying. I'm like, oh my God, what the heck is this? This sounds freaking fantastic. From that moment on till all my teenage years and beyond, I was like heavy on trying to learn more about everything there was. Later on, the breaking that we're going to talk about came to mind, and everybody and their mama during that time was when you go to a baile back in the 90s, people were actually battling out in bailes all the time. You'll find the homies outside the bailes with cardboards here in Dallas, Texas, or the Dallas Fort Worth area, or here in Texas in general, or probably all throughout the United States with their cardboards practicing their moves, battling each other out.
Wow.
At that time.
Wow.
So yeah, as soon as I heard that particular song, I was like, rapping, that's my thing. I need to learn everything about it. I need to hear it all the time and hurry up and understand the language in general because I didn't know anything. Again, I'm still struggling to try to learn English and say the right words. And all of a sudden you got this dude just, I'm like, what is this? It's fantastic.
Wow.
Do you remember the first time you ever listened to Eminem?
I do, but I think honestly it was, I kind of, not that I necessarily blame my community, But within my community, when it came to like rapping or just like the idea of hip hop, it was seen more of like a negative perspective because there's like a lot going on. Like sometimes there's like rap about drugs, but it's a lot of like more of like the representation. But like even like that scene within my community as like portrayed of something bad, that is something we basically avoided. And like growing up, like when it came to that music, it was always something that would like change the radio, or like even in schools, like they wouldn't allow like for you to like listen to that music, or it was always like something they would skip.
See, that's what I don't like sometimes, because it is true. Certain songs are just not it for people and kids to hear.
Right.
But then you hear a lot and you start taking away certain bad words and listen to the profound sound of messaging of the songs itself. And they all talk about struggle.
Right.
Because what they're projecting or what they're singing about or rapping about is what they had to deal with in order to do this. This particular person grew up around nothing but drug dealers and the pimps and everything else. And that's all he knew his world was to be. So how come nobody went and grabbed a hand to him and put him over here on this side? There was nobody for him to be helped. But that's all he saw, his role models at that time. So that individual, either he sold drugs or rapped about that because that's how he was getting his money.
Right.
Granted, I'm not saying that it's justifiable, but that's just his way that he grew up in. And then all of a sudden now he made something that came from the heart, because that was his reality, to be able to come out with a song that everybody in the neighborhood kind of sort of can relate, and any other neighborhood all over the U.S. can relate, because it came exactly from that same background that person did. And now they're doing a lot better because they came up into some money, and they're living a better life.
Right. And you can say that ties in with corridos. Like same thing with corridos. There's corridos about drugs, about struggles, about like going in like the cartels and stuff like that. But like a lot of people from an outside perspective is like, oh, like that's bad, that's negative, which it can be seen and it's understandable, but it's a lot about like the struggle of like, you could say you could say in a way of survival, but like overcoming those challenges, or how those certain situations help cope or like hide pain, So like even that ties in with corridos, but like a lot of people just like to break the association as well. And
you're right. Those are very similar, because a lot of them want to go from nothing, rags to riches, from not having a darn thing to be able to make something of themselves and have a lot of money and be somebody in society that is doing way better, from eating freaking bologna sandwiches to steaks. And some of those lyrics are kind of similar things. Same thing for somebody that's unfortunately got into the narco life or whatever, is because there was no way for them to make any money. Nothing was growing, let's say, in the ground. There was no other option. They didn't have the money to go anywhere else. So they just had to do what they had to do to survive. No excuse as to the criminality behind it. But that doesn't mean that, like, that's why Robin Hood and all those individuals that made it, or anybody that came a story from the bottom, that's why Drake's song Coming From the Bottom Over Here.
Just thinking about that.
Same thing. It's the same thing. They came from nothing to something bigger for themselves, of doing whatever they were doing, telling their story. And it so happened to be that it's crazy that other people were so into the song, the lyrics hit so deeply, they're all like, oh, that's my story too. That's my story. I feel why he's saying the things that he's saying, because that was me. Right. So that's why I don't like the negative connotation of the hip hop, because yes, but if you listen a little deeper, you'll be able to kind of sort of like, if take away the judgment part and be able to kind of sort of just listen to the story that he's telling you about how much he struggled, how bad he had it, how he was in like literally mud, because there's a lot of the terminology gets used from the mud, to being better for himself, because he literally went through some ish to be able to get out of there and be better now. So that's why I don't like it sometimes. I hear it, I see what you mean, and I don't like much of the consuming drug type of rapping, but I can see why they talk about it, because it's just their daily life. Right. And fortunately for people, we're never in that situation. They never had to deal with that. But unfortunately, there is people that have to deal with that every day, even till this day. Right. So some of the most very, very first credited hip hop is Kool Herc. And during that party era where Kool Herc was one of the MCs. And the very first Latino that is credited MC is Prince Whipper Whip. out of the Museum of Pop Culture, identify as Puerto Rican descent. And there's also, he was a member of the Grand Wizard Theodore and the Fantastic Five. So people that are heavy purist hip hop individuals will know about this guy. Did you know there was a Latino that was one of the very first Latino MCs ever in the history of the birth of what's happening at that time?
Not at all. For the same reason, I've never made the association, you know? It was just more of like, oh, like hip hop is more of a New York thing and more of like the Afro community. For
Folklorico, what is some of the one of the credited founders of Folklorico, you would say? Was there a particular organization, individual that they kind of sort of were credited for?
Yes, there's actually so a lot of people make the association of like, oh, like Ballet Folklorico, like one of the founders is Amalia Hernandez, which is like known for like the Ballet Folklorico de Mexico. Gotcha. But it wasn't just Amalia Hernandez. Like Amalia Hernandez was like one of the pioneers to be well recognized, but like there was Ballet Folklorico like many years before she came about. Like
not
that's
only
more
that,
of
but
like
it's regional también,
right.
¿verdad?
It's more rooted. It's more de pueblo, more de like de región, you know. But it came together with an Amalia, which is an influential person, but it's not just her. Like there's more to it. There's more history. There's more background to it.
Okay, we're going to be wrapping up the rapping part of the element, the rap or hip-hop or MCing. But the Latinos that deserve, in addition to Whip or Whip, there's also, some people might not know this, but there's an Alberto Disco Al Calvo, which here in Texas, San Antonio Express, and back in 1980, the bounce rap is credited to be one of the first raps ever in Texas. And then, of course, Kip Farce elevated the history, which La Raza, that a lot of us know. And there was something about Chicanos in general and that anthem itself. And then you have Mellow Man Ace, which a lot of people is the first gold recorded by a Latino MC. And then you take Cypress Hill as Latino that went mainstream, fusing what is a metal type with a Latin funk sensibility. And you can hear it because it was different. And you can kind of sort of see that. And not only that, but they also struggle because Mellow Man Ace was a Afro-Latino that was light-skinned, that he was in New Mexico, that area, somewhere on there. A lot of individuals saw him as like, why is he a black dude talking Spanish? And then the African-Americans, the black folks would be like, why is this light-skinned guy light and talking Spanish too? So they were like trying to figure out where they were at, struggling with both ends of the spectrum, the Mexicans and the blacks, and then they were just in the middle trying to fuse something together and make something for themselves. So it's pretty neat how they came about to do their thing. Mm-hmm. And Mellow Man Ace, of course, and Cypress Hill, some of you might not know of mine, if I'm correct, they're brothers. So as far as have that connection. So this is the ending of the rapping element. So we just covered DJing, we cover MCing or rap, and now we're going to get into the graffiti part.
Fun.
Graffiti. What do you know about graffiti in general?
Well, a lot of association with gangs, a lot of breaking the law, you know, breaking the rules.
Yeah.
So that was my first main idea or the first perspective, because that's how it usually was talked about. Like, Absolutely. For example, like if there's graffiti, you get fined. If you get caught, you're put in prison, you know. But there's more to it. Like there's a meaning, there's a message behind graffiti, which is very beautiful to know more about too.
So as far as to your understanding now, what does it mean? What did you look into as far as what it is?
It's a lot of representation, a lot of where community comes from, a lot of making your voice heard, you know. I would say that.
So when an institution doesn't really acknowledge that you exist, an African kid, African American kid, or a Latino kid, the bigger institutions don't even care to know that you exist. Then how do you make them to see you?
Right.
So out of rebellion, you can say, or out of just being want to be seen, they started doing this art form. So they created different things. So for the people that don't know what graffiti is, yes, I understand some individuals tag everything in their mama, but it was out of like a desperation of like, hey, I'm here still, acknowledge me, instead of just like just painting this wall because I'm bored. It wasn't of that. So graffiti is the element of tag, throw ups, pieces, burners, and murals in spaces used to proclaim visibility, style, and presence. Most commonly credited pioneer of graffiti is cornbread, the strongest earlier documented equivalent to that is Lee Quiñones, who is officially was tagging back in 1974 and 1984, and is credited that he painted over 120 whole subway cars.
Wow.
He was busy.
No, definitely. And like, imagine, like, even the paint, it's expensive to just do that.
The neat thing about him is not he wasn't only painting cars. Like at one time they say, and in one night they painted about 10 of them. Him and his crew, because he wasn't only him. It was the Fantastic Five. If I'm not mistaken, it was 5 of them. But his thing was he's very strategic. Like the cards itself, he knew which line was going to go where, and that particular card was going to give more visibility as he's made his route. So he will purposely tag certain cards because he knew that tagging it will get more eyes on it as it did his route in New York.
Wow. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of meaning, a lot of message. And then same thing if you tie it in with like the comunidad, like even when it comes to murals, like there's some message behind it, like a lot of representation of like what's going on in today's spaces. Or like, for example, there's been a lot of murals of like people who have passed away or who've been killed, you know, like Vanessa.
Yeah.
Like from, from Fort Hood. Like there's murals of her, you know, and it's a lot of representation. And then same thing when it comes to graffiti. There's a lot of representation, a lot of history. There's more to it than just a paintwork.
So when you come to a point of frustration where you don't know what else to do and you have the ability to be able to write something because out of outrage, and be able to do something, to at least do something for yourself, have an outlet to do that. I mean, I get it that people don't like it because it might not be so appealing, but for them, it's art and it's expression and it's frustration for things that are going on that they don't want to feel helpless and they feel like they can do this. You know what I mean?
And to be visible too.
To be visible. That's mostly the main thing. For the ladies, I don't know if y'all knew these ladies, but Lady Pink, not the rapper lady, but Lady Pink, Ecuadorian American, is one of the ones that are found a pioneer in regards to tagging or graffitiing as far as the ladies go. Wow. She was one of the pioneering ladies graffitiing and all over the place as well. So that's another Latino that was in the mix during that time. So I don't know if you know this, but also graffiti during the AIDS pandemic or the AIDS crisis, a lot of the protests and things like that, taggers and painters, graffiti were actually doing and using that to protest as well with the things that were happening.
It's not aware, but it makes sense. Like see the connection, you know.
Again, because you feel like nobody's listening, the government, anybody is not doing anything. How else can you kind of sort of show if that's kind of the thing that you like to do and you have a gift for it? Because I couldn't tag my name to save my life, but other people make some amazing pictures.
Right.
And you made a great point too. Now you have murals, so people of making a stand for things, standing for something, trying to find justice for this particular person. And still to this day, there's no justice behind it. Like, hey, don't forget about this individual that something happened, and still there's no accountability for them. You know,
like we mentioned, there's more to it. There's a lot of meaning as well.
Yeah, when it comes to the actual Mexican American, Cas Bojorque is the Mexican American that's recognized in the Smithsonian American Art Museum, bringing Chicano graffiti into the established art world. So Mexican Americans been in and part of hip hop for a long time as well. I get it. It was established. I like to say it like this when it comes to hip hop. I was going to say at the end, but I think this is the moment. So spaghetti. When you think of spaghetti, you just think of a dish, right? But spaghetti, if it wasn't because of the noodles, and it wasn't because the incorporation of tomatoes from the Americas and everything else that goes into all the spices, you would never have a dish of spaghetti. You would just have noodles with tomato juice. But because of all the incorporation of different cultures putting it together, now spaghetti is like an amazing dish that, yes, you could say it's Italian, but in general, it comes with history. Just like ballet folklorico, all the infusion of maybe Spaniard culture, maybe indigenous culture, maybe this type of culture. All of a sudden now it just becomes what it is. So
it's a whole melting pot.
It's a whole melting pot. So hip hop itself, whether we want it or not, the kids, Latino kids and black kids were intertwining, living amongst themselves in the neighborhoods, and they were all bringing their cultures together to form this amazing cultural dish that is hip hop too, not just the house.
Right.
Bigger than that.
Yeah.
Way bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, did you ever, when you're doing, have you done any art in general and painting for you?
Well, you could say yes. Not very too, like, it's not too much of my specialty, but even then, when it comes to, like, the vestuarios, there's certain vestuarios that are, like, hand-painted and can only be hand-painted, And then that's where, like, your art goes into it, like, the hand-painting. Even when it comes to more of, like just artwork itself.
Yeah.
What's the name of it? It's like I forgot the name of it.
Is it a technique or a paint?
It's like there's the embroidering, which is also an artwork, but there's also like artwork with tin, like the metal that they.
Oh, really?
Like I forgot what the name of it, but there's like a whole artwork to it, and it's also like it's rooted from like the community, But it all has its specialty. But like I mentioned, it's not my strong group, But even then, it's all composed within folklorico, because within folklorico, it's the music, it's the dancing, it's the costume, it's the culture, it's the history, like a whole melting pot. But there's a lot to it, and there's always
5 elements going too.
See, there's a lot to it, and like I mentioned, within folklorico, you have the traditional folklorico, which is more indigeno, academic, which is seen in universities, and then the spectacular, which is more like show presence, like Amalia Hernandez, and it all has all the whole contributions.
Have you ever have to, do paint your own dress, or were part of creating your own dress?
I was part of it. I was creating a dress for Sinaloa, which is the coast, you could say. For Sinaloa Mestizo, because there's Sinaloa Costa, which is more of like a lot of skirt work, a lot of música de banda, But Sinaloa Mestizo is a little bit more indigenous, and then not too much skirt work, But with those dresses, it is hand painted. So there's a lot of history.
So y'all are graffitiing them dresses.
Pretty much.
That's pretty neat. I did not know that. And again, in folklorico itself, kind of like, okay, so let's backtrack just a little bit. The hip hop, the rapping part, it went all over the place. Like you had New York, and then for a long time you had East Coast rappers only, Big and all them, and then before you know it, went to West Coast.
And that's Houston area too.
And then we had Houston for a long time. There was the DJ Screws, you name it. They were infusing different, innovating the sound. And then you have now ATL. Atlanta had a long run for a long time, and now right now there's a lot of Latino Mexican American rappers here in Texas that have a lot of strong foothold. And then you have your California, still the Chicano style type, the gangster type of rapping that you have as well. And then just in general, your main guys that are just like Main Street hip hop that you listen to on the radio.
And even then within Texas, like the perspective of like hip hop or within our culture, it's different what we see like within North Texas, what we see in Houston area, and even as well within the borderlands, like be it in McAllen, like that's something that's not really touched base into of like hip hop for the same reason that it's not very seen or very visible, for the same reason that it's more of like the Raza community, and like Raza tries, it's obviously they're protective, but it's avoidance too, or a lot of ignorance as well.
So to wrap up the tagging or graffiti, a lot of people call tagging graffiti. I never partook. That's one of the elements that I never actually dipped my fingers in. But as far as like literally from the streets, painting out of frustration to try to make a statement, to be seen, to be in the trains and be able to see their magnificent work. Because some of them are like, man, they're so neat. And then all the way to now in museums and, exhibitions and murals all over that people actually asking for. There's a lot of artists that are out there that are doing murals and things, not only here in the DFW area, but I'm pretty sure RBG as well, that now are doing that compared to what it was in the initial times, in part of the hip hop element to what is that now. So it's incredible to see. Okay, we're moving on to breakdancing. What do you know about breakdancing? When I hear breakdancing, what is the first things that come to mind for you?
A lot of movement for sure. Getting your hands on the ground for sure. Footwork, like just those elements you could say, but it's a lot about like the beat as well. So it's going dancing to the rhythm, dancing to the beat, like break dancing,
Yeah.
So a lot to it, and as well ties in with the music too.
Absolutely. So breakdancing, if you don't know, breakdancing is the dance element of hip hop, which is again the four pillars: b-boying or b-girling, build from battle, footwork, freestyle, and power moves to the break beat. The most factual origin of the statement is not just one single innovation. It's World Dance Sports Federation says that the earliest innovation of breaking is African American and Puerto Rican in the Bronx back in the mid 1970s.
Oh.
All the way to the 1970s. Again, when the DJs Kool Herc started formulating the breaking, that's when the b-boying, breakdancing. That's kind of sort of how they incorporated. Right. Now you have the b-boys, the b-girls doing their moves, and all of a sudden now you have a thing that's happening. And the cool thing about that 1973 party, all the elements were there. There was graffiti, there was dancers, there was the MCing, and there was the DJing happening all at the same time in that day of that party, the memorable birthday of hip hop.
Wow.
Yeah. So for you, have you ever tried it at all? Have you ever taken, because there's a bunch of hip hop classes in general, like you can go and take classes and things like that.
I mean, I've taken classes within hip hop, but not my like specialty, But I do see a lot of similarities with, like, if we tie it in back with Ballet Folklorico when it comes to, like, the roots of, like, Afro-Cuban, Caribbeans. Same thing within Folklorico. If you look at more of, like, what's Yucatan, Veracruz, it's a lot of roots from Africa and from Cuba as well. So
yeah, you got your Tainos with the different elements, the different beats, the drums. Then you have your indigenous way back in Africa so the way that it kind of sort of works, let's say in a time stamp was individuals that were brought in as slaves to Africa. Some were landed in the Caribbeans. They were interacted with the Tainos, which is the indigenous individuals or whatever native was there at that time. Before you know it, after years, they kind of sort of like became a thing, and then all of a sudden their elements were incorporated into what the natives already have, and before you know it, you started creating different sounds, which again, that's part of the birth of salsa, which is the same thing. Salsa is called salsa because it incorporates all those things, because it has the element of the Tainos, because it has the European thing, because the European accordion thing, because you have all these other things that are fused together to make this amazing sound. And then not to mention, moving forward in salsa, you have incorporated the jazz, incorporate all the other things, and it's just been a mix of things over time.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that a lot of the times it does come from African descent and African instruments that brought in, that were forcibly brought in. Even the chanting and the songs sometimes come from the same thing.
See?
Yeah. So for you, as far as would you ever give it a shot of breakdancing? Okay, so for me, I might have or might have not done or tried to break dance.
Really?
But it was in my room trying to dance some of the moves, and maybe in a baile or two I might have busted a move, but there was no impact behind it because nobody said nothing. So I'm like, okay, I suck. I need to stop this. This is not for me.
I mean, as a dancer, you have to be open to like all dance genres,
Of course.
Obviously, you could say my strong root is within Ballet Folklorico, but I wouldn't necessarily close my doors into like breakdancing or like learning more to it. Obviously, it's gonna take time, but I'm open to it.
Absolutely. So one of the most recognizable names, and as far as Latinos go in the element, is a Puerto Rican by the name of Crazy Legs. So Crazy Legs is one of the pioneer b-boy dancers that there ever was, and credited, and you can still hear his name all over the place as far as one of the ones. There was other b-boys already prior to him. They were doing it, but it's the very first one of the credited very first Latinos is Crazy Legs. And if you're a purist into the hip hop, you heard the name over and over again. And it's again Puerto Rican descent, Latino.
Wow.
Yeah. Cool story. Y'all seen the episode with my boy Louis the Great. He was one of the ones that it still hasn't been solidified in documents yet, But I seen the videos of him doing a particular move, which is the continuous air flare. That before him, other people try to take credit of that move, but he did it in '93, and the other recorded video is from '94, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
So not only Louis is into hip hop, but Louis knows all. He actually can do all of them. He can break dance. He used to be one of the United B-Boys here in Dallas, Texas. United B-Boys are very recognizable, not only here in Texas, but in Houston because of the name itself. The group was very solidified back in the 90s. They were competing. They were all over the place, creating moves, battling anybody and their mama. One thing about breakdancing that a lot of people don't realize is that the reason why people were breakdancing is so they would not fight each other. So it was a way of battling each other without actually creating violence and fighting amongst each other. So that's the reason why it was actually done. Battle each other out to settle something instead of doing it with your fist.
Right. And then same thing within the dance, like other dance forms and other dance genre, like capoeira. I believe it's from Brazil.
Yep, capoeira.
And it's considered within a martial arts form, but that's why it's dancing.
Yeah, it's very neat, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of capoeira moves get used in breakdancing. So breakdancing uses not only just dancing in general, but they incorporate their own moves, their own way of doing things. Of course, there's your basic things, but then you have your power moves, your air flares, your all kinds of other
as well,
stuff.
that facial expressions as well. It's an incorporation.
Yes. And then, of course, you incorporate some of the martial art things and some of the Olympic moves that even before it was an Olympic thing, they were already doing certain moves. So it's interesting. So my boy Louis does all of them. He does the rapping. He does the graffiti. Really great artist. He goes, okay, so let me feel I can remember. So his artist name is Louis the Great, or Luisito el Grande, and I think he's going through a change right now. His tagger name is Oxygen, and then his b-boy name is Logo. So the only one that I feel like he does a little bit, but not so much, but he supports a lot of the DJs here in the DFW area. And again, he's Mexican descent también, so Mexicano. So he does all of those things.
Wow.
The only one that I feel like, again, he doesn't do is the DJing part, but he does host a lot of different things. I don't doubt that he can do a couple of things here and there with the DJing part, but he definitely incorporates a lot of dudes that are in the DJing spectrum, the natural, the scratchers, the real, I wouldn't want to say real DJs, but the ones that are really into the craft of scratching and, you know, kind of sort of still do vinyl and things like that other people nowadays don't do. I'm a DJ of a controller DJ. Like I have my setup that I do and have all the music in the world, but not that scratching part so much right now professionally. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you know anybody that's into the hip hop culture at all now these days? Did you meet anybody that knew a little bit more than your average individual about hip hop?
Not necessarily. Yeah.
I'm the only one.
Pretty much. I mean, my professor Dr. Rodriguez, he knows all the gist to it. Like he's obviously a professor within the University of the Rio Grande Valley, and also the director of the program, the Mexican American Studies program for undergrad and grad program. But he's the one that actually developed a hip hop class at the Valley. So we're into it. So
you're pioneering for the folklorico. Here's pioneering for the hip hop.
Yeah, sure.
Professor, please take it easy in the comments. If there's corrections, please do not stop. Don't stop from correcting me so I can correct the record. But for the most part, these are some of the things that I looked into, the most common knowledge about this individual's being credited for this. Now, is there other individuals that maybe they were less popular, that maybe their name was not in the record books of doing the first thing and pioneering? I don't doubt it. It's like everything, you know?
Right.
I don't doubt that there's maybe an individual that was the first ever rapper, even Latino, before things, and nobody gives him credit because nobody knew. But down the line, down the family's history, they know that he did it, you know?
Right. That's true.
Yeah. Were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
No. I was just reflecting as well. Like, that's very true. Like, a lot of people don't very know necessarily, like, who the pioneer was or, like, how it was rooted, you know? But they're there.
Yeah. So, again, before Kool Herc, there was other DJs already doing certain things, but it so happened to be that the way that he was breaking the beats kind of sort of made it stand out to the point to where I don't want to say the world stopped, but the world did kind of stop for a second to be like, what is this?
Right.
So it was so important that even the birth of hip hop is from that party to that date in August, that they say that that was the birth of hip hop. Now, is there a counter argument for other people saying the opposite and things? Because there was already other DJs back in the 60s already doing stuff. Because there was already people from Jamaica already doing parties and kind of sort of talking over the beat. Yeah, there is. Right. It's not saying that they're not, but its own fusion of what it was doing, it created that was slightly different. It's him, Kool Herc, and going forward.
The whole building block.
Yes, the whole different. So again, shout out to my boy Louis. Again, one of the main things as far as here in the Dallas area that hasn't been solidified and credited, but I don't doubt. If I'm not mistaken, there's been things that have been submitted in to give him credit for the things that he done and the crew, and also the I mean, just in general, just to do the crazy things about breakdancing, man.
Right.
Back in the days, I know you don't see it so much, but back in the days, man, I'm telling you, in quinceañeras, in the middle of the baile, you bust up a freaking battle right outside. Most of the bazaars where there was a dance hall or whatever, they were breakdancing. Wow. Man, these guys were devoted. These guys with, I don't know if you know what Dragon Ball Z is. So Dragon Ball Z is a anime, and they used to do was the hyperbolic chamber. With the hyperbolic chamber was like it was a machine that kind of increased the gravity, so it'll be heavier for you to walk. So these guys will be dancing in concrete or dancing in cardboard in general, and then they will put weights on themselves and things like that to be able to be more agile for the next time they have to battle somebody. So these guys are really training for battle. Yeah.
It's insane. And like a lot of people, they just think it's a dance. Same thing with folklorico. They just think it's a dance, but like they don't necessarily understand like the sweat and tears it takes to present that.
What is the extreme amount of training that you've done for folklorico to get you conditioning to be able to dance like at least 4 or 5 events for a weekend or more?
I mean, when it comes to me, I tell people, I'm like, if I'm not either dancing, I'm at the gym for the same reason that I have to condition myself, especially being a soloist, like performing through like 30 minutes to an hour and then being outside too. Like it's a lot because sometimes I have like 3 to 4 performances like a day, and like 4 to 5 times a week. Like it's a lot of conditioning. It's a lot of training and pushing your body to the limits as well. But like obviously not too, because then again, if I'm not okay or if I'm not well, I can't perform or I can't perform to my potential or to my fullest, So it's always, it's a tricky road, obviously. It's very tricky.
What is the most amount of performance that you done in a day, or let's say in a weekend, starting Friday and then on Sunday evening?
I mean, I feel like it's usually during Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September 15 to October 15. I think there's like a week where I had performances like every day. Like obviously when it's like September 15, September 16, up to like 3 performances like outside, But the performances throughout the week, like every day. Performance every day.
Man.
Yeah.
2 or 3 times sometimes?
2 to 3 times. And then when it's Texas heat, outside. And then keep in mind, it's like not only am I dancing, I'm wearing heels as well.
Yeah.
I'm performing on heels. Sometimes I'm performing on concrete, which is not the safest thing to do, to perform on heels, And then folklorico dresses too.
Man.
Which are heavy. Like, for example,
I'm tired just hearing you, girl.
Sometimes the dress can weigh up to like 8 to 10 pounds. Like, it's like it weighs. Like, it's a lot of, like, to make the skirt work, you need tela, and eso
then you need también muscles to be able to do all those fancy moves.
I'm like, I might look small, but I do got my muscles.
No, you have to. You have to be able to have some muscle mass to be able to do all the waves and things. It looks freaking beautiful, but you make it look easy because hours and hours of it.
Easy.
Wow.
A lot of passion to it.
Amazing. So again, breakdancing recently, I hope it comes back. Because the last showing, so eventually, I don't know if you know this, but breakdancing actually made it to the Olympics. So it went from in the streets, people kind of sort of like dancing in the break to not trying to beat up each other to now being in the Olympics. And hopefully he stays, but it's not gonna be a showing in 2026 because of things that y'all seen online and things that happened of people that were, how can I say it? People knew people, and those people allowed those people to be part of one of the actual athlete quote unquote for them, not for the actual breakdancers, because the actual breakdancer, they're hardcore,
right?
But that particular person did not deserve to be in that category of Olympians to perform or compete in an Olympic level. Because if you just right now go on YouTube and do breakdancing street moves, you'll be able to see the crazy things that are capable of doing that is very similar to some of the things that you see on gymnastics and different things like that. But unfortunately, because of that showing, I don't even know the name, and I don't really care to bother to look into who her name was, but it sucks that there was an opportunity for something fantastic as breakdancing to be part of it and be a serious thing to make it almost into a joke.
Yeah.
Of the showing of the last Olympics.
And it's unfortunate because sometimes it takes one person like to blame, like a lot of people, well, we're human beings, but we tend to see more of the negative aspect rather than the positive, or like the greater outcome. And it always gets tricky when it comes to situations like that.
The thing that ticks me off the most is the politics behind it, of the reason why that person was able to even make it through. Because even the people that were organizing and selecting the people, they were like, that was her husband or something like that, of that lady that showed. So, you know what I mean?
Just not aware.
So there was a lot of politics behind it where it could have been fantastic, but it was not.
No, but like even then, if we tie in with like breakdancing, like it's an everyday use, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a whole art form, it's to take serious because it's a professional artwork. For the same reason, you have like a lot of artists who are touring right now and they use like backup dancers, and a lot of the moves that they're doing, it's breakdancing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't take that into consideration. It's just like, oh, they're just dancing. But like, no, there's more to it. You see?
You try to do it for a second, see what it feels like. So again, at its peak so far, because I don't doubt it's going to go away,
right.
But it reached the Olympics. Breakdancing has reached the Olympics. It was at the Olympics. It made a showing in 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So it's great that it started from something in the streets to with the idea of people not hurting themselves to all the way to the Olympics.
Wow. It's insane.
That's neat.
It's insane.
That's neat
see
to
how
see.
far it's come.
Okay, so again, as I mentioned earlier, depending on who you're asking, there is a fifth element, which is knowledge or knowledge of self, of consciousness, some people call it. And this name has been coming up on the news recently on social media. Africa Bambaataa, unfortunately, he passed away, which created the Universal Zulu Nation, and is credited with pretty much kind of sort of the philosophy of hip hop and the culture, and kind of sort of giving it like a structure. And maybe they didn't call it the elements, but that's where the actual formation of the elements or the pillars of hip hop originated from that particular group. And that he's been, again, I don't know what happened. There's been accusations on this gentleman that unfortunately he passed away of sexual misconduct and all kinds of other stuff. But unfortunately, it's sad that he passed away. But, can't take away the fact that whatever he did, this is part of the things that were formed for hip hop and the pillars. And that's why we talk about the things that we talk about these days. So, yeah. Did you know, have you ever heard that name at all? Africa Bambaataa?
No.
Zulu Nation at all?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So I've been gone through the DNC, the DJ battles, because right now you still have DJ battles. You can actually, they have them yearly where DJs go and spin and scratch, and there's a whole ordeal. It's a big deal. Wow. So I believe it's not mistaken, it's called the DNC, which is the if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, DJs compete. There's also competitions for breakdancers. There's also rap, hip hop battling. We didn't talk about too much about that, but rap battles where you say one thing and I go and say the next thing.
There's even programs about it too.
Yeah, there's all that. And then, graffitiing still very relevant all over the place. You can see it everywhere still. People are doing now murals instead of, you can still find taggings here and there differently all over the place. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. It's they see a nice canvas, they have a message.
Like bingo.
Kind of like that. All right. So as far as your take for hip hop now, I know it's not a class or a whole entire course, but in general, how does it make you feel to know that 53 going on 53 years of hip hop history has been it's like a thing now. It's like full of richness, and even though you just hear the word hip hop, you think of rapping, but there's a whole lot more. It's interesting to know now.
I mean, honestly, I'm amazed of seeing how it came about, you know, how it's like really rooted in community, and as well, like within community, like the roots, such as like Africa, such as Cuba, Puerto Rico, you know, like there's a lot to it. And that's where I tie it in a lot with folklorico, because within folklorico, it's not just a dancing. It has its art, it has its culture, it has its history, you know. But I'm very amazed to see how it has evolved over time and how it continues to evolve. So I'm very interested and fascinated to see how it continues to evolving within the Mexican American like culture, and as well, and like not necessarily, but as well within other communities too, because as well it has impacted the Asian community, and also it has impacted like the white community too. Because for example, Eminem, like he's not Mexican American, he's not black, you know, that's someone within like our culture, you know, within like, you know, within the States, but like he also went through struggle, like family issues, and that's where he found like this art form, and like really has paved the way as well.
It's amazing to be able to know that the struggle was happening for them. Their life wasn't easy, and they were able to harness that, all that pain and all that suffering, into something amazing.
Right.
And you're right.
A lot of meaning.
And you're right. Like the movement, even though it initiated in the Bronx, New York, back in August, is worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
There's hip hop rapper artists, you know, there's Korean artists, you name it, they're there.
Yeah,
and in
even within K-pop as well.
Yeah, and in competition, you'll see it too as well, as far as like the DJing, the MCing, everything that you can think of as far as the elements. You have somebody from another culture, another place on Earth, planet Earth, that is not the US, that are harnessing those skills. And the innovation part, right?
Yeah.
The innovating part, because the DJ, from him doing 2 turntables to now the fader, which is another element that was incorporated into the DJing that made it easier for go from one of the turntables to the other,
right,
very easily, and quicker way to transition to these days the sync button, or the other buttons that some DJs might not like, but I'm just saying they're there, right, innovating the craft, you know?
Right. A lot of, I would say, a main key point that I would take away, it's a lot of representation.
Yeah,
a lot of representation, like I mentioned, when it comes to the history, the music, the art, very rooted, the struggles, you know. So if I could say one word, I would say representation.
And there's also a lot of pride, because a lot of the individuals, even though there was battling social things happening, injustices, they were able to use their talents to protest. And not only that, but pride in who they are. Like if you're Mexican American, was very proud to be able to rap about this and incorporate it. Like for example, Mellow Man Ace was one of the first ones to be able to include. He heard somebody rapping in Spanish, but he was one of the ones that incorporate Spanish into the rap and saying words. So he will start a lyric and end it with a Spanish word, and that itself had not been done in the mainstream for a long time, to the point to where it got him a gold. All the way gold as far as his record went.
Right.
So even that, you know, pride of like, all these Mexicans don't understand why I speak Spanish. All these black folks don't know why I'm lighter and I am the way that I am. But I'm still going to do me. I'm still going to go ahead and put this art and incorporate who I am, the being where I've come from, and be able to put those words, Spanish words, that is me still.
Right.
And show the whole world, not just this neighborhood.
Yeah, because even then, being in McAllen now, pursuing my master's, like hip hop is something that is, but isn't really touched based on, but it really depends on who you're speaking to. Because for example, with my professor, Dr. Rodriguez, like he grew up like learning about hip hop, like that was really like what was home for him, you know? And like just coming from a background where that wasn't, well, myself coming from a background where hip hop wasn't necessarily really touch base for like the stigma it has, it's very eye-opening, you know, and a lot of curiosity has emerged of like wanting to know more about like what hip-hop is, and as well more cultures too. Yeah,
and that's the beautiful thing about just getting to know more about other things. It's funny to know that I think it's a lot of the times as far as the global land factor for me is getting to tell people, giving them a window to know the unknown of the Latino community, the Latino culture. Because I think there's fear behind the things you do not know. So if you don't know about hip hop in general, the history of everything, and all you see is the rapping, maybe that is not the nicest word sometimes, then all of a sudden maybe you'll create a negative narrative for you to be like, yeah, I don't think it's my thing. But if you realize that some of these things were from struggle, from the bottom to try to make better for themselves, just like corridos, just like, folklorico. I don't know the politics behind it, but I'm pretty sure they were trying to express something for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reason for folklorico coming up as far as...
Well, it's a lot about representation, a lot about like community as well, religion too, because within folklorico, it's very rooted based, but like there's always a meaning behind to each dance, ritual, representation, community festivities, weddings, a lot of like roots, you could say. Yeah.
And we're going to wrap it up soon. So thank you very much for helping me get this going. And I got all by the way, hip hop, maybe an album cover type of shirt. So
that's amazing.
Global Factor right here. So go to the website, visit, and it could be yours. It looks very hip hop, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you so much for bringing the idea to me. Again, when you said it, I was like, girl, you need to not leave it to the last minute. But, I'm so excited to be able to do it because I really enjoy talking about hip hop as well. Definitely. Because, again, from my very first interaction with hip hop, learning about, again, Bone Thugs and Harmony, to then later on learning about California, Little Rob type of hip hop, and the way that he was incorporating that Chicano rap, and the way that he was blending the oldies with the new type of way to be able to, even the SPMs that a lot of people don't like, but still it is what it is. He's can't deny his lyrical ability, to the Baby Bashes, the hit Platinum, to La Raza, to all these other things, to even at one point trying to break dance, but now currently DJing and MCing still, whenever you brought that, I'm like, I'm your perfect guy. Exactly. And there is fear into it for the same reason that I have, like, a lot of people have the perspective that it's just a folklorico dancer, just rooted in Mexican American identity or just la cultura de Mexico, but as well, hip hop does tie in with the Mexican American like history, like our roots and everything. So there is like a bit of hesitation or a bit of fear because I feel like I'm stepping into something that I'm not very too knowledgeable as well. And you could say I didn't want to necessarily disrespect too, because it's something that I'm not very aware or very still getting educated, but I'm glad I did reach out. In comparison to folklorico, it's a lot younger hip hop, but it has its own history. And within its DNA, whether people argue or not about it, and they want to not be happy about it, Latinos been there in the inception, all the way to the first, one of the first photographers with Puerto Rican descent, Joe, that was taking pictures back in the days of documenting all these things that were happening over, and we were right there on the pictures too. We were not too far from it. I mean, we were here within the States, Yeah, and then to now regional, corridos tumbados, taking the big chains and everything that, of course, it is influenced from hip hop, but at the same time, they're doing their own type of genre of music. Yeah, even it ties in with fashion as well, because artists like Peso Pluma, they have like you could say like the fashion choice of like what's used like in New York, which is like an everyday basis, but that's also like influential within hip hop. Absolutely. Before I let you go, Tiffany, if I let you go like you remember, I guess. Before we go, please tell them all your social media. Where can they find you at? Yeah, of course. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram as Tiffany_Y_folklore. And then on Facebook, Claudia Tiffany Rodriguez. Or you can even Google search me, Claudia Tiffany Rodriguez, or even Ballet Folklorico. I found out a few days ago, if you search in Ballet Folklorico, the first image that pops up, it's me. What? Easy. That's awesome. Congratulations. This was another special edition episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast covering hip hop and Latinos. They've been there since the beginning, the DNA, the inception of hip hop. We've always been there, and we continue to innovate the sound itself. Not only, again, hip hop, 4 elements. You got your DJing, you got your MCing rapping, you got your graffiti, and you got your breakdancing. All those things will be in there innovating and creating it, making it even bigger than what it is with the most respect, and to be able to show that we are part of the history of hip hop, whether we want it or not. Exactly. It is what it is. And without a shadow of a doubt, once again, we are just like you. We are people. We are the spice and flavor in this melting pot that it is the world. Till next time. Bye.